Well, there are any number of reasons, but certainly in part of our contemporary media environment, one of the characteristics of it is that uh, areas that once were kind of specialized and compartmentalized sectors of society now are all kind of merged into basically being media personalities and celebrities. So part of a celebrity strategy is to simply gain visibility. And if you have the potential to run for president, as we're seeing with some of these folks, it adds to your value as a television personality, perhaps as a talk show host or a reality show host, or simply as a speaker commanding very high public speaking fees. Well, I think that people always have complicated set of motives for any kind of major decision, and it's not just simply one thing isolated. And we have seen on a number of occasions. I mean, our current president being an example of one where somebody comes out of nowhere, and folks of a certain age will remember this being the case with Jimmy Carter, for example. A candidate who no one has heard of suddenly emerges and becomes the not only the major party candidate, but is elected president. So there is certainly this quality of a long shot being something that shouldn't be ignored. But again, there's also a lot of payoffs if you don't win. And on the Republican side, I mean, on the Democratic side, if you don't win, there's a tendency to forget about the losing candidates. But on the Republican side, not so much. The losing candidates come back again and again in subsequent elections. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And Republicans seem to have almost a kind of turn taking where the leading candidate, the also ran, gets becomes the leading candidate in the next time around. The Democrats seem to be more unforgiving of the losers in that respect and have a higher turnover. Well, it certainly goes back to the '70s, and I think it does go. I mean, when we look at the current period, I mean, the transition that occurred was from party politics to image politics, and that went along with the shift from party candidates being chosen by the party elites to primary elections when it became a matter of who won votes and won the statewide primaries. That shifted the balance of power from, say, party bosses, as they used to be known as, to the media and to the major mass media outlets, because that was the way that candidates got their message out to large numbers of people. What further added to the media mix is new media, not so much in terms of the candidates' popularity, but certainly in organizing their volunteers for grassroots campaigns. That's a fairly new phenomenon, but that's something that really brought Obama. That was where Obama was able to win out over Hillary Clinton in 2008. Well, it was gradual, but it began in the '60s, in '68 for the Democrats, although it was still party oriented. But '72 is when McGovern won the Democratic Party nod through primary victories, leading to a disastrous defeat in the national election. Uh, More '76 was when Ronald Reagan almost took the Republican nomination away from sitting President Gerald Ford. So by 1980, that's firmly established. Well, I guess you could say that. have a lot of qualms, at least on my side of the fence in academia, about using this language of commercial marketing. But I mean, that is the way celebrities view themselves, as a brand, and as a brand that's transferable from appearing on television to running for office. I mean, it works in all different directions, so that you have someone like, say, Al Franken going from being a comedian to being a senator. You know, of course, we've had Arnold Schwarzenegger as a governor. Many people, I think, would like to see Jon Stewart run for president now that he's put an end to his hosting of the Daily Show. Well, it simply increases your let's say market value, um, so that you can command a higher salary as a television host, and again, much larger speaking fees, and people are willing to pay a lot of money, sometimes in six or seven figures for simply to have a big name appear, even if they have nothing to say of any substance, just to have them there and to be able to say that they were there. In this sense, it's like Marshall McLuhan said: the medium is the message. In this case, the individual, the celebrity, is the medium. It's kind of like the human medium. Absolutely, absolutely. And even if you do not have a any shot at being nominated for the presidency, this is how you start out. You show that you can get some votes, you show that you can maybe win a primary here or there, and next time around you become more of a contender. So there is certainly a long game in that respect, and a shorter game in regards to the vice presidency. Obviously, presidential candidates may pick vice president running mates who had not been running for president and not been in the primaries. Sarah Palin would be an example of this, but many times they do pick folks who did pretty well in the primaries, and therefore will help them out, or at least they believe will help them out in terms of the general election. So politically, there are a lot of payoffs. Even and this is of course more recent, but we've seen where Obama tapped Hillary Clinton to be Secretary of State. That's a cabinet position is another possibility as well. Well, sure. You create an organization, you get people, followers who are interested in you, and you learn the ropes regarding fundraising. And because so much of the campaigns take place through the major media, which costs an enormous amount of money, and the amount just skyrockets from one cycle to the other. So learning how to do fundraising is essential, getting that experience. Absolutely. And the more visibility, the better well known you are, the more you're likely to get people funding you. And a lot of the big funders out there, and of course there are the political action committees as well, they're willing to put a lot of money into many different candidates, sort of hedging their bets. Well, the money's out there, and I think that's part of the reason. I think the ability to reach people through new media has also resulted in the proliferation of candidates. It's easier in a sense to get started. It's easier to organize this relatively small group of followers in each locality. The internet, I mean, through social media, particularly energizes candidacies. Again, this was what Obama demonstrated, and in a way, it means just like I can start a blog, or do podcasting or a YouTube channel with very little resources. In the same way, a political campaign can get started with relatively small amount of resources to begin with, and then take off once it's picked up by the major media. Yeah, the entry fee is very small, and then the ability to kind of make a rapid rise from a modest beginning has been amplified tremendously by social media. That's an interesting question. I think that really all of these Republican candidates are benefiting, and it's the kind of the leading candidates like Jeb Bush. Who are suffering because of that? I mean, under a other circumstances, we would only have a few candidates, and they'd already be crowding out most of the others. But the fact that everyone, I mean, it seems like every week a new candidate is jumping in. That is part of the benefit of social media, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. A lot of people are talking like this is some kind of disaster that there are so many candidates, but I mean, if you really think about what democracy is supposed to be about, I mean, we should see this as a good thing. We need more candidates, not less. Well, yeah. Again, I think that the really interesting thing is the interchange between politics, journalism, and entertainment that we see going on. And it's not that these areas were ever entirely separated, but now there are no barriers whatsoever to these sort of things. And so, I mean, one of the things we might look for come the fall is which of these candidates are tapped to appear on Saturday Night Live, for example, as that, and who might show up on, say, when Colbert takes over the late night show on CBS, and who's going to appear on the other talk shows. That is going to probably be a stronger signal of the legitimacy and strength of a candidacy than polling at this point, or how they do in a debate, at least until the primaries actually get started. Both. Well, I mean, there's no separating the two anymore, and that's the really strange thing, and you really have to go into it thinking that, I think we see someone like Bernie Sanders, for example, who has a very serious arguments being made, and comes into it, probably with the expectation that there is not, that this is an issue-based candidacy that has no serious chance of winning, and yet suddenly it's like boom, there's this explosion of interest, and he is very well served by the internet, by social media, and I think we can expect to see him appear on some of these TV outlets, and all of a sudden the candidacy becomes viable. And we haven't really talked about Trump, have we? But I mean, really, with all the attention that he's getting, there has to be a point where you suddenly say, this could actually happen. As strange, as unlikely as it may seem, for all intents and purposes, it could happen because the media environment that we're working in, and the political environment that exists within the media environment has changed so dramatically that something new and unprecedented could occur now. Well, just on that point of the new and unprecedented, I'd go back again that George McGovern winning the primaries in 1972 against more established party favorites was new and unprecedented, and Ronald Reagan, as an ex-movie star, becoming the Republican candidate in 1980, and also representing a right wing of the party that had not had much power in the party previously. That was new and unprecedented. So we can, and Obama again riding through the power of social media to the presidency was new and unprecedented. So we can expect something else unexpected to occur in the coming year.
This is Marketplace from APM. I'm Kai Risdall. The number of the day today is 16. It's not a stock or a market share or an economic indicator of any kind. Ohio Governor John Kasich entered the race for the GOP presidential nomination today, the 16th person to do so, as you know. There are 5 on the Democratic side, some of which on both sides are, to be honest, long shots. You know who they are. They do too. So here with a question. Why are they running when the odds are so heavily stacked against them? Marketplace's Nova Safo takes a stab at the answer.
First of all, long shots do win sometimes.
I mean, our current president being an example of one where somebody comes out of nowhere.
That's Lance Straight. He's a professor of communication and media studies at Fordham University. But why so many long-shot candidates in this election cycle? Straight says one reason is that the internet and social media have changed the calculus.
A political campaign can get started with a relatively small amount of resources to begin with and then take off.
So the buy-in is low. The rewards, though, can be high, says Larry Sabato, who heads the University of Virginia's Center for Politics, even if a candidate doesn't win.
You can increase your speaking fees. You may very well be offered a TV or radio contract.
For example, Mike Huckabee reportedly made $500,000 a year for his Fox News show. Herman Cain got a nationally syndicated radio program. And those speaking fees, they can reach tens of thousands of dollars.
I mean, think about that. An hour-long speech, some Q&A, and you walk away with a check for 50 or 60 grand.
Sabato says this kind of brand building isn't new, just intensified. He can point back to when presidential candidate Barry Goldwater chose a relatively unknown Republican congressman, Bill Miller, as his VP. They lost. Miller made an American Express commercial.
I ran for Vice President of the United States in '64, so I shouldn't have trouble charging a meal, should I? Why, with this, they treat me as though I'd won.
Miller made that commercial a full 11 years after his turn in the political spotlight. I'm Nova Safo for Marketplace.